my introduction to creative writing, it happened in junior high, and I had taught myself to read, but I didn't read well. I really hated being called to read out loud because I couldn't read smoothly, and one of my autistic traits was that I had speech delay. And so even at an older age, pronunciation of certain words was difficult. And I had, early on, I had speech therapy to help me be understood. And to this day, sometimes my words either are pronounced formally or barely at all. So reading was hard out loud, and I could read quickly to majority of it being accurate quietly to myself. So in junior high, I had this teacher, Mr. Gorlick. He was at, I believe it was John Muir Middle School in Burbank, California. And he had a teacher's aide with him. And she was also very kind, and he had an assignment. And so he introduced the class to Edgar Allan Poe and his short stories and poems. I was just out of foster care. I was dealing with a lot of stuff. And so Poe was just right where I was. And so he had us read this story, Pit and the Pendulum. And we were getting into it. And despite having to read it out loud at times, we really enjoyed it as a class. And then it ended abruptly. The last of the story was purposely withheld. The assignment was that we were to finish the story with our own take on what we think is going to happen and to write this ending. So I went home and I imagined, and I wrote in this other character came in, and this other character tried to rescue the guy, and the guy was rescued at the last minute, but the other person was injured, and then they went through this whole escape, and then they went back, rejoined, because it was like the military guy was a prisoner of war, so we went back to his military, they came back, won the war, it was this whole narrative, and then it was like, at the end, it was him remembering the situation. Like, now he's the one telling the story. And he's remembering this person who he's kind of mourning because the person has passed away. But that person is the reason why he's still here. So, it was this really elaborate thing. I got an A, and he read it to the class. He helped me with the spelling. And he really encouraged me with my writing, and I got excited over it. And then I didn't get to actually read the real ending of the story for like another 5 years, and was disappointed because it didn't last much longer than where we were cut off. It was like the pendulum was dropping and dropping and dropping. It was coming down, it's coming, and then it stopped, right? The story stopped. So it doesn't really go much farther. I mean, it is a few pages, but it was not like I made it the halfway point. That was more toward the end. So I was a little disappointed at how quickly it wrapped up. But I felt like I totally did better. And so I started to write. I would skip music class to do extra English. And Miss Burns was the aide. Miss Burns and Mr. Gorlick. And he would get teased over his name, and people would call him names as they passed his classroom door. And I think I might have had a crush on him. He seemed like he had his feelings hurt, and it made me feel for him because he had been nice to me, and it made me really get mad at the other kids. And so anyways, Miss Burns and Mr. Gorlick had a period where they were doing their planning. So this 1 hour a day each teacher has to do the planning and everything, to grade and set up the curriculum and all that. So this is their planning period. I was ditching music. I couldn't read music. The teacher was not even trying to teach us anything. I mean, she would just go through the motions. People were just banging on stuff and making noise, and I was learning piano, and if the music was translated into the alphabet, I knew the positions of the keys, so I could follow along, kinda, you know? I kind of could figure it out and play a little bit, but at some point, it was just sheet music, and I couldn't read it. So I'm just banging on the keys, and I was like, I'm not learning anything. And I'd rather be doing something I actually was good at. So I would do extra English, and he would let me be there because it's better than me roaming the halls, getting into trouble. And so I was that geek doing extra English homework. Later, I started using my story skills for things like Dungeons and Dragons, which I spent most of my time creating the characters rather than actually playing the game. The character sheets, I loved them. I loved character sheets and making characters. And so I would just make characters just to make characters. I used to write a lot. My high school teacher entered me into a writing contest, submitted one of my poems, because for a time I was into poems, and my poem won the contest. And I was really excited about that, because this is above just getting an A in class. This is like I won a contest, and so I was invited to this banquet where I'll be presented with the certificate or whatever. So I went there, and then they were calling up everybody who had won. There was, I realized it was a contest for kids. And I was embarrassed because I was the oldest one there. But my poem was not a kid's poem. It was Danger in That Kiss. and it was about domestic violence. And I got invited to join the American Poets Society, and I was invited to come out to DC and to read my poem at a convention, but I couldn't afford the ticket or the hotel. It was going to be like a 3-day thing, and I couldn't. Single mom was raising us, because at that time, there were no dads really involved, and there was just no way I could go. I didn't have the money. So, somewhere out there, there's a Collective Works with my poem in it, under a different name though, because Braxton is my married name. Originally, my last name was, don't laugh, okay, Yarbrough. So, Yarbrough, Christy Lee Yarbrough. I was always the back of the line at school, because they would put it in alphabetical order, and me and my cousin, we were like, I hate that our name starts with a Y. Like, everybody's ahead of us. And so my cousin's idea was she's going to marry someone's last name was Aaron. A.A. Their kid was going to be in the front every time. Me, I'm not that picky, but I got a B. So I'm usually in the front. I think a couple people can be in front, but B is toward the front. So pretty successful in that one. Anyways, so introduction to writing was Poe. I had already enjoyed listening to Gene Roddenberry. My dad read the books he had based on the Star Trek series. And Tolkien, the J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, and The Hobbit. And my dad had Anne McCaffrey. Anne McCaffrey, I remember when White Dragon came out, my dad got a copy, the hardcover. He was so excited. I've read that book a couple times now. Anne McCaffrey, and occasionally she writes with other people. And there's a writer that writes with her that, used to write with her. She's passed away. Anne Scarborough. I think she loves cats, because everything that she writes with Anne McCaffrey has cats in it. And like in a major way. Like the cats are characters, or they're cat-like characters, or there's cats. I wish I could. No, it's Elizabeth Scarborough. That's what it is. Anne McCaffrey and Elizabeth Scarborough, and they would write books together. But she also does books on her own, and I think she did a couple books with her son. And so Anne McCaffrey was like huge for me. Still love Poe. I loved when they mix fantasy and sci-fi. I really like that. So when I write, I tend to write toward that. Part of me is also tried to expand in other genres. Like my great-grandmother would read Louis L'Amour. I'm not familiar with the writer's personal life. I'm not sure who exactly he is, but I'm familiar with the work. I'm hoping he's not a horrible person. But I did read a lot of his works because she had them. She had a collection of them. She even had a book signed by him. So I read some of his stuff, and she pushed me for a long time to read it, and I resisted. I'm like, I'm not into westerns. That's not my thing. And then I was like, she passed away, and I got nostalgic. I always seen her reading these books, and I missed her. And I wanted a connection. And westerns aren't my thing, but I read the books, and I enjoyed the stories, and I got connected to some of the characters. And so I thought I would write a western. It is not really, first draft has never really been completed on that. I've also read romance novels. I've read a couple. And I think one was a Twitter friend. She had a romance novel. That was pretty cool. It's like a kind of thriller to it. Supernatural, like half demon girl kind of thing. But that would write, that went horribly wrong. Horribly wrong. Yeah, I don't do romance, and I should never try that again. Yeah. The human connection is a level to make a romance. The flirting, the banter, the emotional connection, and the expressions are just above my abilities. I've experienced a lot of things. There are some things I'm limited in my own experiences. And so I can't flirt. I am freaking goofy as hell when I flirt. It's comical. It is not attractive at all. Romance is pretty goofy. I mean, I'm basically goofy, trying to flirt and trying to be romantic. But my poor husband has been very forgiving. And he's happy. He's content. So if he's content, I'm doing fine. So anyways, I've tried different genres. I want to do the sci-fi part. The fantasy is easy. If I imagine it, and I imagine a whole world. I mean, I see the thing happen in my head, like like I'm watching a movie, and I'm just recording, like I'm writing down everything I see. With sci-fi, you gotta imagine the tech, and you gotta imagine how it works, and it gotta sound like it is possible. It's got based on facts and real things. And I don't have those facts. And I can't imagine something that actually could work. But I have an ace in the hole because my husband is a self-taught physicist. I taught myself to read. He taught himself physics. He's a whole other level of self-taught. He watches MIT lectures for fun. He knows how stuff goes together. He has invented things already. So, I want to utilize my resources and have him help me. I'm going to tell him what I want and have him help me explain how it could possibly be done. So that when I'm writing, all my fantasy people are satisfied with all the magic and all the wonderfulness of the imagination and you know, all the fanciful stuff. But my tech nerds will just go crazy over the stuff that is plausible, technology-wise, and they'll be like, yeah, that might work. That looks like something that might actually be a thing. So that'd be cool. I avoid religion, specifically religion, because my biggest nightmare is if I make a commentary or an opinion piece about the Bible or something, some fool out there is trying to make it into doctrine. And I don't want that to ever happen, because I think every religious relationship between a person and the thing that they are connected to, however that may appear to them, is very personal, deeply personal. You want to be a good whatever it is you are, then just be good at that. Be good, live your life that way, live your life according to however your spirituality has led you to, whatever that is. In my faith, I've been called to love. Nothing else. So that's why I don't go into that. So I would demonstrate love in my books, but I will not make them a spiritual book. Avoid that genre. It's all about the loveliness of magic and the dark side of magic. I like the dark side too. Is, that whole Poe is still there. So, alright, I'm going to cut it short because I'm going to run out of time. And I gotta go to bed. So, I'll talk to y'all later. Like, subscribe, and you can comment, and I will always read the comments, Alright, bye.